Well, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ.
And I'm Chip.
And we had a sedate Chip before we came on the air, as I've never seen a man ready to rip off a head or two. It's definitely a dark and gloomy day for the city of Fall River. But I'm going to address some of the highlights so far. Supposedly, and has been reported, that the firefighter union has agreed to 175 firefighters as opposed to the 200, which everyone else wants. The problem that I have with that is that they can't negotiate manning. That is not something, and we spoke about this earlier this week on the show, that it's not an item that they can force bargaining on. So you get it now. You may get it for the rest of the contract if you write it into the contract, but there's no guarantee you're going to get it when you renew that contract. So let's keep riding this roller coaster and see where it goes. And I know that Chip would have a lot of things to say about that. But right now, I am going to turn it over to Chip because this morning, Chip had a very special meeting with his emperor, Will Flanagan.
Yes. Joe Castro and I, the chairman of the Insurance Advisory Committee, and I, as the Public Employee Committee representative for retirees, had a meeting to discuss the health care. Yesterday, we had a meeting of the municipal retirees, and it was a very, very long and very raucous meeting. Obviously, our retirees are extremely upset by this cost shift, which is going to cripple most of them who are on fixed incomes. All of them are on fixed incomes. And to shift the burden to them is, as I've said on occasions, unconscionable. So we had a meeting today with the mayor, and we had some revelations. Apparently, something we all knew, this is all about money, but the thing is that, as we have said before, we are running under budget, so we had a difficult time figuring out why this should be an issue if we're running under budget. Well, apparently the city's out of money. Apparently we have $6 million in our trust fund, and the city is supposed to match that at a 3-to-1 ratio. So they should have $18 million left if they use the money that was budgeted for healthcare expressly for healthcare. However, apparently they don't have any money. They're broke. It's gone. Nobody knows where it is. And again, when we began this program quite a while ago now, we always said, follow the money. Well, apparently they didn't leave a trail of breadcrumbs for our city's financial gurus, and they lose and find money on a routine basis. So we have an issue that's going to be obviously come to a head. I am going to go before the council next Tuesday and again say that the city should be accountable with what was done with the money that was earmarked for health care. The fact is that that money was budgeted for health care, and I'm not sure if it's legal for them to use that money for anything else but what it was budgeted for without an action of the city council. And it also, or if you wait till the end of the year, then they can declare it free cash and they can use it because they don't have to keep it in an interest-bearing account as they have to do for the employees, since we basically pay a premium. So I'm not even sure if what they did was legal. This goes back to '91. They did the same thing. They admitted under oath they were buying sheetrock with money from the health care fund, and they're running the city. So apparently this money has not been used for health care. All the excess money has been diverted. And I think that taxpayers, city council, and everybody needs to find out what's happened and hold people accountable, because the fact is, the end result of this fiscal irresponsibility is that the taxpayers are going to get a tax increase. They're going to get an increase in the water rates. They're going to be getting an increase in the meter fees, and the city employees are going to pay an additional $9 million for their health care out-of-pocket expenses. And many of those people are 80 and 90 years old that I represent and are on a fixed income, and a very meager fixed income. And this is just, it's, as I said before, this may be malfeasance. I think that this could call for some type of state or federal investigation.
You know, I knew we were in a bad situation. I really did. And I knew we were having a problem as a city. But never would I have figured that this could total up to something like 18 or $24 million. Because if the employee trust fund is 6 and the city has to match that 3-to-1, that would be 18. That's $24 million. I mean, and they don't know? I mean, the mayor doesn't know? I mean, is that what he said? I mean, what is happening? What is happening here?
Well, you're right. I asked him specifically because when we were discussing the transition to the GIC, they were talking about the penalty because healthcare plans, for people who don't know, they may run for a calendar year, but there are bills that come in after the end of the year. They're called incurred but not reported as of yet. So there's normally a 2 to 3 month lag. So they require you to have in a fund, a specific fund, enough money to pay the incurred but not reported claims. So I asked them 2 questions. I said, we were supposed to have that funded. Where's the money? And since we're running $6 million in the black, how much of the $18 million that you should be in the black is still available? And his answer to me was, I don't know. And that kind of answer to me is not acceptable from the chief executive officer of the city.
Was there anyone there from finance? Was there anyone there from, the auditor, the treasurer, anyone at all? I mean, Kathy Ann Viveris, was there anyone else present in this meeting? Because, these are people that should be present to explain this to us.
No, he had a bulleted sheet that he was reading off. I believe it was prepared by Kathy Ann about the reasons why they have to go to the GIC. And I believe that, well, I'm not sure if having Mr. Nunes there is going to accomplish anything, because if we asked him a question, I'm sure his answer would be, I don't have those numbers in front of me. I'm going to have to check and get back to you. But I'm sure Kathy Ann basically gave us their bullet list of why they have to go to the GIC, and the bottom line is that we're out of money.
Now there's a $7 million fund that we have to create by converting to the GIC. If we have no money, where are we getting it? That's my big question.
Well, I think it's not too, obviously, I have some serious questions, which I'm not going to pose to the mayor. I'm going to pose to the city council. We originally heard we were $16 or $17 million. We had a $16 to $17 million budgetary shortfall. Does that include the $18 million that disappeared from the healthcare fund?
I don't know.
And if we add that to $17 million, that is a big number. That is a big number.
Sounds like receivership to me.
Sounds like $34 million to me.
Yeah.
That's unaccounted for. And, that we're in arrears. That is city money. And if the city had done its job and done what it said in the budget and had this money specifically for healthcare and used it for what it was budgeted for, this city should have $18 million in that account that could be turned into free cash at the end of the fiscal year and eliminate many of the issues that we see in front of us.
Right.
So, we don't have answers, and we began our program by saying follow the money and ask why. So we can't answer these questions, but I think as taxpayers, as involved citizens, as people who are going to be hit by the mismanagement that we've seen on an epic scale. We are the Ben-Hur of mismanagement, So this is an epic.
But the thing is that we have to look at this. If you remember correctly, we were behind like 5 or 6 years in audits that had to be reported to the DOR. And Sean Kadim brought all of those up to date under the Flanagan administration. Now, those all came back fine, no problems. We were all set. So, does that mean that that $18 million was all there and accounted for at that time? And now that Sean Kadima is gone, the money is gone? And I'm not saying Sean took it, but I'm saying we can't find it, we don't know where it is, we don't know what's going on with it. So my question is, were those reports proper? Were they correct? Or were we playing with fictitious numbers again? And we've been hiding this for so long that eventually you know that when you make mistakes or you try to hide something, eventually it comes out. And it's going to bite you on the, you know.
Well, I think this is the reason that we're discussing here the possibility of an investigation, maybe even a federal investigation of what's going on here. Because, as I said, this goes back to '91 when we filed that grievance and we hired Ernst & Young to do a forensic accounting of the healthcare system, and we found over 1.5 million that had been misappropriated. The treasurer and the auditor at the time admitted under oath, and we do have that exactly verbatim because we hired a court stenographer to take it down exactly as it was testified to. They testified under oath that they in fact did use healthcare money to pay bills, to buy sheetrock and paint and do things, and they did in fact backdate checks, and they did use that money for things other than health care, and our money got shifted into the account because somebody just forgot. And they did also say under oath, which is really scary, it's probably still the same today, this is why we need an investigation, and it was supposed to be corrected in '91. They did admit, when our attorney cross-examined the auditor and the treasurer, he asked them a very simple question. He said, we're looking at all these money transfers, millions of dollars. He said, they don't have any names, they have numbers. So can you tell me what this number is? And their answer was no. So he said, you don't know what this account is? He said, no. And he said, well, what do you do? He said, well, we get a slip from the city administrator or the personnel director. At the time, that was Sharon Skeels and Bob Connors, and it says, transfer X amount of dollars from this numbered account to the other numbered account. So the next question our attorney asked was, so theoretically, you could be transferring this into somebody's bank account. And the answer was, I guess so. So that's no way to run a railroad.
No,
and
it's
apparently
not.
we're still running the railroad the same way.
You know what's really interesting, though, is that we've all been complaining about where's all this money coming from. You know, I know where your health fund might be. It might be at the Highland Park, that new $100,000 fountain, you know. Rip it out, go sell it, go pay some bills, you know.
Yeah, it's ironic. We never run out of money in this city, but it seems that every time it gets budget time, we have to raise everything in the city to fund things because we, you know, and that is a very real question, CJ. You asked, you know, a very, very, you know, an accurate question as to, are these budgets nothing more than facades? Are these budgets just made up to make us think that this is where the money is going when basically it's rob Peter to pay Paul all the time, and you know, nobody knows where and it's just spend the money, spend the money, spend the money, and at the end of the year, run around helter-skelter and then say, how much do we have to raise the tax rate, how much do we have to increase fees, and how much do we have to take out of the pockets of the city employees in order to run the city. I mean, there is absolutely no accountability.
No, you know, and that's been the problem. I know that for many years, and as a candidate, which many of you people out there felt was unacceptable, I asked for an independent audit of our books. Not somebody that's done them all the time like Sahadi, and, you know, but somebody to come in from the outside and look at all our books and see where our budgets are going to. I know that you've said that for many years. Dan Robelot has said that for many years, but nobody wants to do it. And when I spoke to the DOR about that, they turned around and said, oh no, the mayor has to authorize it, the city council has to agree to pay for it, and then we'll do it. Well, isn't that kind of, I mean, that's putting the fox in charge of the chicken coop, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, asking a politician to account for money is is not really the way to go. You have to demand things. I mean, all we have to do is look at our state legislature. Many, many years ago, they used to have to vote in their own pay raises.
Yeah.
And there was a thing called the Halloween Massacre. And they voted, they convened they convened the House on Halloween night and gave themselves a massive pay raise. And the citizens of Massachusetts went absolutely crazy over it. They were going to lynch them all. So the great and general court, in their infinite wisdom, took care of the problem. They'll never, ever again have to vote themselves a pay raise because they gave themselves an automatic cost of living raise. And it's not even based on a consumer price. It's based on what they feel they need. And so this is the way politicians handle it when they're asked to account for money. What they do is they make it so they never have to come back in front of the citizens again and account for it. They just make everything automatic and they hide it.
You know, I really want to see how they're going to handle this because obviously the GIC has to happen now. Okay? They can't stay in the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, which I've always thought is crazy because the city is a self-insurer, which is the scary part. And this is something a lot of people out there don't understand. The city is a self-insurer. That means they have to pay all their own claims. Now, the city acts as a self-insurer for the health plan and for workers' compensation as well. So what happens is the city pays in to the employer part of the fund, which should be about $18 million, and the employees and the retirees pay into the employee trust fund, which should be about $6 million. And out of that money, they pay the bills that come up, which is amazing to me. It's managed right now by Blue Cross Blue Shield. Do I have that right?
That's right. It's administered, yeah, it's an administration fee.
They're the administration. Okay. So, but the city's paying the bill, and that's what people don't understand. It's like when somebody gets hurt on workers' compensation, the city's paying the bill, nobody else. When they lay somebody off, the city's paying the bill. The state doesn't pay out the money for unemployment. The city pays it all out, dollar for dollar. And I've always said the city should really look at getting some insurance to cover these things and just get actual insurance. They think they're saving money, but they're not.
Yeah, well, that's always been a problem. And the other problem is the attitude that's changed over the years. The attitude at one time was that, you know, we tried to take care of our employees, that especially the people who spent 30 and 40 years serving the city, and that there was a reasonable expectation that your service was going to be, you know, honored by the city, and the city was going to make an attempt to take care of you in your twilight years and also for the people with young children and give them decent health care, because these health care systems were negotiated, pay raises were given up to get them, and there were a lot of concessions made. And actually this morning I brought up, and CJ, you have it in front of you, to show that at one time we did care very, very intimately about taking care of our people, because ironically enough, one of the people we took care of when I was chairman of the Insurance Advisory Committee was none other than CJ. Take it away.
Mayor Will Flanagan. This comes from a July 14, 1997 minutes of the meeting. And Sean, who was Sean? I didn't.
Sean, that was Sean Kerrigan from Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay, Sean Kerrigan. Then brought up the Will Flanagan case. At that time, remember, our mayor wasn't known as Will Flanagan. He was known as William Sylvia, I believe. This is the retiree with no spouse, but he has a dependent son, age 17. Right now, they both have Mass Health Plus plans. Sean stated that it was his understanding that the city exception to retiree with Medicare A and B going to MedX was when there was a spouse and child on his Mass Health Plus family plan. It would cost this retiree more money to pay for one plan of MedX and a family plan of Mass Health Plus for the spouse and child. In that situation only did the city agree to let the retiree remain with the family on a family Mass Health Plus plan until the dependent child was no longer eligible. All agreed that this was the intent of the exception. Mr. Machado pointed out that it would cost Flanagan more to pay for the family health plan than to pay for the one Mass Health plan for the son and MedX for himself. However, Flanagan wants to stay on the Master Health Plus plan, as that it was what he's used to and what he thinks is best. I like that. Boy. Mr. Camara pointed out that it would be a bad precedent to keep making exceptions, as what was done for one person would have to be done for all. Interesting that you brought that up. And then in September 8th, 1997, it was given to him. Isn't that nice?
Yes, and the point of this, and he was shown those documents this morning, because I wanted to remind him that back in 97, I made the point that if we did it for him, we have to do it for everybody. And all these many years later, if you remember, about a year ago, I was in front of the city council when the city basically abandoned Nero Farias, an 85-year-old police officer who made a career in a police department, started the PAL, and they would not extend him the same courtesy. And by the way, the 17-year-old dependent child is Mayor William Flanagan.
Right.
So I pointed out to him that we had enough compassion to try to give his father the best way out so he could save money, because we understood that he was on a fixed income. And obviously at that time, I was not a retiree. I was the chairman, and we convened the first minutes that CJ read was a special meeting that was called. If you at the first paragraph says who was at the meeting, and the only people at the meeting were myself as the chairman of the Insurance Advisory Committee, Dennis Pacheco, who was the police union's representative to the IAC, and Dave Machado, who was the retirees representative at the time, because Mr. Flanagan's father was a police officer. And, you know, it's rather ironic that we have a mayor now that's going to attempt to balance the budget on the backs of the people who have the least ability to pay, and he is an individual who was not victimized in 1997 because we had enough interest in our retirees and compassion to ensure that we didn't try to break them financially. And the fact is that his response when presented with this was, I don't want to do it. I'm doing it because we're broke. Well, how did we get broke?
And that's one of the questions we want to ask you, the viewers. How did we get broke? How is the city going to pay $7 million to transfer us into the GIC plan? Where's that money going to come from? Are they going to pull it out of the sky? Are they going to go take out a loan, or otherwise known as a bond? How are they going to come up with that money to transfer us over? What savings are actually going to be realized by the city? And at what cost to the retirees and the city employees? Where is all this money going? I have no idea. And we want to know from you. If you have any idea, call us. Our tip line phone number is at the end of the show. We have an email, tips@scstonline.com. Send us your tips, send us your information, because we need it. We want to look into this as deep as we possibly can get, because we want to know who's responsible for this travesty, who is responsible for this criminal malfeasance. Because in my opinion, this is a criminal act. This is a criminal act where we, the taxpayer, are going to have to pay for it. Do you realize that if we end up having to go into receivership because of all the bonding and all the lost money and everything else, do you realize that our taxes are going to be uncontrollable? Our fees are going to be uncontrollable, and our services are going to go right into the toilet. Is that what we want? Call your city councilors, call your mayor, and let them know you're not happy about this, and you want clear, concise, and transparent information. We need it. I mean, Chip, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is, because the question has to be asked, as you said, how are they going to pay the transition? The reason that the city wants to go to the GIC is because the state allows them to bond the transitional money, the $7 million.
It's the magic word.
The magic word, bond. You can't bond normally for this type of expense. It's prohibited. But the state, in order to try to get people into their plans, allow them to bond. So if we bond, guess who pays again? You're going to pay again, because the bond is going to be paid by your tax dollars. So the city is going to take that $7 million debt and divert it to you and I the taxpayers, when there's $18 million unaccounted for in this year's health care fund? The question again, if the employees are running 9% on the budget overall, 12% for the retirees, and we have $6 million in our trust fund, where is the city's matching money? Where is the city's money, period? We're not even asking for the whole 18 million. How did you not even have 7 million out of the 18 left?
Well, the other question I have is, do you know if the employee money is there? I mean,
Well,
there's another question.
Well, we get a report every month that says it's there. Is it there? Your guess is as good as mine.
I know.
Because we don't have we can't go into those bank accounts. They're city accounts. The city regulates it by 32B. They're the ones who put the money in the bank. They're the ones who take it out of the employees' paychecks. But as we said, it wouldn't be the first time that they misappropriated money. They misappropriated the money in '91. In the last 3 years, they've had $3.5 million worth of billing errors in the healthcare system, and it's tragic. But it seems nobody knows where any of the money is in the city. And ironically enough, the only thing that's running efficiently in the city is the healthcare plan, and that's the one they're messing with.
Well, I know that a lot of those people know where some of the money is. They put it in their pocket every 2 weeks in the form of a paycheck. And some of those paychecks are pretty big. So
Absolutely.
And it's not right.
No, you have to call your city councilors and express your outrage. We want accountability. You have to call the mayor. You have to call your state reps, because this is ridiculous. Your tax rates are going up. Your water fees are going up. Now if you're a city employee, they're gonna take a retiree that's getting $1,000, $1,200 a month to live on, and they're going to make him pay $110 for a prescription that he was getting for free, or $35 if he had to get it through Express Scripts. So that's more than 3 times more. It's just unconscionable.
Well,
it's contemptible.
I think the last comment I'm going to make on this is, I guess that the mayor went to the Buddy Cianci School of Management very well, because it's the same situation all over again. And on that, I want to thank you for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. We're here, we're real, and we're going to make sure we get to the bottom of this. If you have any information, any tips, please get a hold of our tip line and let us know. I'm CJ.
And I'm Chip.
Thank you for watching.